Well, welcome to Excel in Retirement Podcast, where we help good people make wise financial decisions so that they can excel in retirement. Your guide is David Treese, a financial advisor who shares his expertise to help you achieve greater peace of mind about your finances today. I'm your host, Andy Traub. In our last episode, we talked about the mindset around the volatility of a stock market and how to stay calm. And today, David's going to walk us through some practical mechanics, some mistakes people make, and how you can prepare yourself in a really practical way to protect your lifestyle and when the market can get hairy. So, David, I don't think we're going to be too technical for people, but this is going to be really practical in
Yeah.
nature. We're talking about some very specific sort of X's and O's, some actions to take to protect against market volatility.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it. I'm excited to be here with you.
So first of all, and this is a big one, and we're going to give a little bit of math, but we'll keep it simple, is when the market starts to go down, and you see, you log in your online, account, or you get a statement in the mail and you're like, wow, I had 100 and now I have 80, right? Some people will just go, oh, I don't want it to go to 70, so I'm going to sell. Okay. So let's just say they bought in at 80 and they went up to 100 and went back down to 80, and they're like, I'm going to get out. What is the negative that they do what is the negative consequence of doing that?
Well, there's a couple things there. You're locking into your losses, of course. We all know that. But you're, in a way, trying to time the market because you're saying, hey, I don't want it to keep going down. You don't know if it's going to go up to 90 the next month. And if it did, you made a really poor decision at that point. And so you're essentially locking into your losses there, and you're creating a static situation where you can't recover. And then you're ultimately trying to time the market. And so the next question becomes like, when do I get back in? And you never know when to get back in. Most people have a very difficult time knowing when to get back in. And that's the challenge you have. I had one gentleman that he was worked for the railroad system for a while, and I think most of his career, and he had lost a good bit of money in 2008, 2009, and he sat in cash until 2019 when I met him, and he just didn't want to lose any more money, and he wasn't really timing that to get back in, but he missed one of the biggest bull runs in the history of the stock market, and would it be in a very, very different place today had he not done that. And so things get really, really scary in the moment, but having a plan beforehand of how we're going to react is the key to not making poor decisions, I believe, when the pressure is applied.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, I think, or it's sort of like when you think about people out at sea, or recently even with the soldiers that their planes went down in Iran. Like at some point you hit, hey, we're going down. I'm going to get out of this thing.
Yes.
You hit eject, right? I'm out. I'm getting out of this thing, or abandon ship. From a sailing perspective, and that feels like a safe bet, right? And that is a good decision if you truly are going to crash. If it is going to go to zero or whatever. I think what is the more mature, difficult route is to say, yeah, it's gone. It went down. Hold on.
Yes.
Hold on. Ride the wave, if you will. And that can be difficult to do. Scripture even says in Proverbs 21, it talks about everyone who is hasty comes surely to poverty. And I don't know that they're talking about the market necessarily as much as just a general, like, being reactive.
Yes.
And that's, the stock market is a bad place to be reactive.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. We want to have our plan beforehand, then run the play. And when the pressure is applied, we can react. Isn't it weird how those two pilots, though, in that Iran situation, they weren't at the same place? You would think that they would eject and they would end up at similar places.
Know what?
And
They're going really fast in the sky, and they got parachutes, and there's wind, and I'm just glad that they're alive, right?
Yeah, I imagine they're probably trying to
I was
get
thinking
out of the
about
sky as quick as possible to keep from getting shot at.
yes.
Yeah.
Let me get out of the sky. Yeah. Not safe up here. The other thing that I think is difficult for people to really kind of get their head around is that, it's, if you plant a tree in your yard, it's going to go from a sapling, it's going to grow a little bit, but like, your tree is probably not going to double in a year, other than when it's really young, right? But it's not like, well, that tree was 10 feet last year, now it's 20, unless it's bamboo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the difficult things with the market for people, as you talk about, one of the first things we want to caution people against is selling impulsively or quickly, is that you don't know, because like as an example, the S&P 500 fell 20% in 2022, but it was record highs by 2024. And
Yes.
it's like, that's only 2 years of a swing. And
Yeah.
other times it's taken 10 years for the market to recover, right?
Right.
And so again, it is just so difficult to time that, nearly impossible. And so the answer is to not try to time it. It's just to be, consistent.
Yeah.
You teach a fundamental thing when you meet with all of your clients, and that is another way to protect against the volatility of the market is to not have, and again, just think about this as a listener right now. Like, imagine if every single dollar you had, every dollar to your name was in the stock market. Like, you wanted to go get something, you want to go get pizza for your family, you got to go sell stock and then get it into an account and then go buy it, right? It sounds silly, right? But you teach about how you need to have money that has different sort of expiration dates to it, and how does that help people within the stock market?
Yeah, I don't think my 4-year-old Ansley would be happy if it took 2 days to order Apollo's pizza. For her.
No, Dad,
She would be
you
quite
need to
mad.
have more liquid money, Dad.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
We call it green money, blue money, and red money. And our green money is our liquid bank money, so the money we can get a hold of, and having that 6 to 9 months of money there. And then our red money is market in the growth, our market and growth money. And so that's our long-term money. And Warren Buffett, he has all these sage analogies, but he said at one point, you don't buy a farm based on what it will produce the next year. You buy it based on what it'll do over 25 years, I believe, is a paraphrased quote of what he said. And so that's kind of our outlook with our red money, is this is our long-term, we hope it appreciates well over several years. And then our blue money is our nearer term money, our income and what we use to try to balance things out. And so that's the money we're going to use over the next 10 years. And it's all good and well to say, don't sell when the market gets crazy and scary. But if we don't have a plan, we might feel forced to do that, whether it's the right thing or not. But if we have that blue money in place where we have something that is balanced, and that's where we're going to take income from, and we have predetermined that beforehand, hopefully we can turn off the news and have more peace is the goal to know that we are covered for the next few years. That's the goal.
I'm looking up the story real quick, and I'll find it here. So back in 2010, let's see here. I've got to find the story here. It might have been longer than that. Give me 1 second. This is an example of actually it was 2010. This is unreal, this story. So this is different kinds of dollars should be used in different ways. Okay,
Right.
so you've got money in your checking account, and you're going to use that for the vacation or for whatever, right? That's your liquid money. This story is almost unfathomable. But in 2010, Slow Hanyeksk, Hanyezz, used 10,000 Bitcoin to buy 2 pizzas.
Oh yeah, I remember the story.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those would be worth $1.1 billion today. And it's almost like, how do you get your head around that? Like, what does that really mean? But what it is that Bitcoin has become something else entirely, obviously, for a lot of people. But we're not endorsing Bitcoin, clearly. Okay, just we're stating that.
No
But
Bitcoin.
it's what kind of money do you use for different kinds of things? And if you open up your checking account and it's going up and down when you're not spending money, you're like, well, what's going on, right? And so that's why I want to encourage you, visit with David, talk with David if you're interested in having a more balance to your finance, because one of the ways that you control against the volatility of the market is you have certain money that is in the market, and you're like, oh, that's the roller coaster money. That's the money that on any given day could be up and down, you
Right.
know, and it's really sort of your hands are off. Now, in your checking account, your savings account, if your savings account is going up and down and you're like not touching it, there's a problem, right?
Yes.
You know, but again, it's about the roles of money. The last thing I want to bring up, David, is this historical perspective, and that is that one of the foundations of your teaching is you do not guarantee things that
No.
involve the stock market, but also having a perspective, right? I'm in my late 40s now, and I see things happening, and I see even sometimes I see the way parents act at a sporting event, and I go, you know what? They just don't have perspective. They don't realize that this too shall pass, or it's
Mm-hmm.
not that big a deal, right? And I think there's people that have been through the market ups and downs that are near retirement now,
Yeah.
and they're probably more calm than maybe younger investors.
Yeah.
So,
That's
what
the
role does a historical outlook factor in when you're investing in the market?
I think that's one of the best things about working with folks in their 60s is they have that perspective. And when we talk with people in our age group, we don't always have that. It made me think, saw in the news yesterday, we go down 385 in Greenville to go to church every Sunday, and and there was a road rage event. People were like bumping bumpers on the interstate, and apparently they ended up, of course, crashing. One of them did, and so there's
No.
pictures in the news about all these cop cars on the interstate and stuff. But it made me think when you said that, is like whatever was so important to those people, like that situation could pass in like a minute or 2 minutes and they could be on
Yeah.
their way and like their
Yeah.
life could be unaffected by that. But for some reason they chose to focus on something that they'll be dealing with for months, if not years to
Yeah.
come because
Yeah.
of something that happened in a short period of time. And so it is all about outlook and knowing when to let things pass and so forth and when to react. But I would say definitely it's one of the most enjoyable things when you're working with folks that are in their 60s, 70s, or 80s even, and they have that historical precedent so they understand that markets come and go and that the idea is to have perseverance. You know, there's a lot to be said about investing with perseverance. People that get ahead are not pulling their 401k out every time they change employers and spending it on vacation. They're rolling it to an IRA and saving that along with their new 401k for retirement and so forth. And so there's a lot to be said for just sticking with it. You know,
Yeah.
Ed Miletti's a motivational speaker I've heard a couple times and has written a book, and he says something to the effect of the most successful people in life, they don't get tired of doing the boring things. And so
Mm.
many times we get tired of doing the boring things like automating our investing and putting that contribution in and doing XYZ that has helped us get to where we're at. But those that have massive success, they keep doing those rudimentary things over and over and over again.
Right. And I hope that's an encouragement to you who are clients of David, who work with him often and regularly, that, slow and steady wins the race. The thing about cliches is they're usually true, right?
Yep.
That's why they became cliches, and so that it's important to just be slow and steady, win the race. But if you find yourself in a place where you're not confident, that you do worry, more than you want to, then a plan will overcome worry. We talked about this, I think, in past episodes, David, where there were some storms that were coming through my area, and I saw the damage recently of where they just like a mile south of us, the tornado stopped. I mean, it kind of fizzled out or whatever. But the difference between having a plan and being prepared versus other times when storms were coming and I wasn't prepared and I didn't have a plan, it's not enjoyable, but it's a very different feeling when you have a plan and you're prepared. And so if you're not feeling that level of peace and confidence, storms will come, whether it's a war or it's just in, interest rates, or it's a different political party, or, a weather event. I mean,
Mm.
weather events can change the stock market. You know what I mean? I remember a couple of years ago, there was a bunch of, oh, I know what it was. There were not very many storms.
Mm.
And so a lot of like Home Depot and Lowe's stock was going down because they counted on storms to be able to sell more of their stuff. And
Right.
so less storms was worse for their stock, right? And it's things like, well, does the weather affect the stock market? Yeah, it does. It does, right? It can take it can take oil refineries offline. I mean, that's happened in the Gulf before, right?
Yep.
So in the midst of all that, I encourage you to reach out to David. This is his passion. This is his skill. This is what he wakes up and wants to do and is great at. And that is to work with people who want to have a plan. That's why he's a planner. And so, David, I appreciate your heart for folks. I appreciate your wisdom. Appreciate this short 2-episode series about how to really navigate market volatility from an emotional, but also from a practical perspective. So, as always, thank you for your expertise. And I know you look forward to talking with some people who are listening and watching this.
Yeah, we don't normally make predictions on this podcast, Andy, but if you were having to predict who's going to win the Final Four tonight so that everybody can go back and see if you were right or wrong, do you know who you're pulling for?
I'm a Big Ten guy, so I'm going to go with Michigan.
Yeah.
And Dusty, man, went to IU, and he was involved at IU as a coach and such. So, but I will say my prediction is that guys who worked a lot harder than I did and much more talented are going to win the Final Four tonight. And
I think so.
What about you?
I hope Michigan wins too. I'm not a big fan of Coach Hurley. No shade there. It's just, yeah.
He's got some. He is intense. He is
Yes,
intense.
he's very intense.
Yeah. Well, folks, thank you so much for listening. David, as always, thanks for your expertise. And I look forward to hearing about folks that reach out to you and you guiding them through what is for always and will ever be market volatility.
Yes,
so thanks, David.
Thanks, Andy. Have a good one.
Investment advisory services offered through Creative One Wealth, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Clients excel in Creative One Wealth or unaffiliated entities. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by any government agency and do not provide tax or legal advice. Investing involves risk, including the loss of principal. No investment strategy can guarantee a profit or protect against loss. Licensed insurance professional. Insurance and annuity products are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Investment advisory services are provided in accordance with a fiduciary duty of care and loyalty that includes putting your interests first and disclosing conflicts. Insurance services have a best interest standard, which requires recommendations to be in your best interest. Advisors may receive commission for the sale of insurance and annuity products.